Every guy, we are haunted by the possibility that we are not good enough. We see these polished AI versions of guys with the perfect six pack and the supposed like 7-figure salary and perfect marriage and the kids that love them all the time. And like we see all this crap and we think, well, I'm way behind.
Like, this should not be as hard as it is. It is torturous a little bit. It is. It's not easy.
We've got to lean into mentors, and then we got to figure out what is the standard. What if I do sort of catch up to a guy that I was like jealous of at first, and then I pass him? Then what? Am I satisfied for the rest of my life?
Men's mental health is a big hot topic right now. Are men lost right now?
You know, I don't think most men are. I think the ones that are lost are being highlighted on things like social media or mainstream media. But I think a lot of the guys that we just don't hear from, probably the silent majority, they've got a pretty good idea of who they are as a man and what their purpose is. And I would say I'm just throwing out random numbers here, but I bet you it's probably over half, something probably like 60%. And this is just anecdotally in my experience and then hearing about other people. And it's just a lot of times when you know who you are and when you know you're on the right track, you don't really need to like attract a lot of attention to yourself on something like that.
For example, like you mentioned, the men that are lost are being highlighted quite a lot now. If that is such a burning issue and that's the thing that's making the headlines, why are we not highlighting the men that know themselves to maybe help the ones that are lost?
Well, and that's where one of my big passions is trying to get these guys to mentor other guys. And I'll take anybody, like if somebody's 21, go mentor somebody that's 15. You know, whatever it takes, just find somebody else to show them how to do a little bit better just in life. And so, yeah, that would be the thing. Instead of highlighting like why some of these guys are so lost and broken or whatever, those are the sensational highlights that it makes us, creates the emotional reactions and keeps people watching longer and all the different tricks that the media needs to play on us. But yeah, when I'm speaking, especially in public at different events or different shows like this, I'm always asking guys, hey, if you're just a little bit older than another dude, just show them how to get to the point that you've gotten in life. Then hopefully you've got a mentor that can show you as well.
That feeling of not being good enough, is it a confidence issue or an identity issue?
Yes. It's both.
Both.
Yeah, it's both, and the confidence gets built through experience, and then of course the identity is something that has to be received. And a lot of times we don't know who we are, so we try to put up this fake version of ourselves through achievements, or maybe even from just kind of pulling back and playing it safe. But yeah, confidence comes from going through failure, putting myself out there enough to realize, yeah, a failure doesn't actually mean anything necessarily negative. It just means that I'm actually good enough to keep going in the face of the failure. It's just an attempt that's going to eventually lead to some sort of success.
Yeah, it's like the Viktor Frankl meaning versus success theory. Like, men chase achievement but forget to find purpose.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's in fact the book that I wrote. I used one of his quotes right the very first page of the book is a man without purpose distracts himself with pleasure. So yeah, it's all about finding your purpose.
How do you feel about the term "be a man"?
Mm. I don't like that one because it just carries so much connotation to it. Now, I do like man up because it's more of a behavior thing. But if you tell somebody like be a man, the implication is, hey, you're not one, so you just need to like be somebody else. And I don't like that because then again, you're striking at the heart of somebody's identity. Other thing that's also why I don't really agree with some of the addiction language of like I am an addict. But so be a man. We're talking about identity. Like, okay, I'm already a man. I just need to step up. And men, we tend to come alive when we get called up into something higher. And that's really what I hope for men is like if somebody uses that language of be a man, I hope they're not necessarily meaning it as a derogatory thing. I'm hoping they just mean like, hey, step up and step into your calling.
I want to push on this because you said that typically men, we step up when times are high with pressure and things like that, but there will be men, probably maybe even younger boys, listen to this, that when pressure comes, they buckle. Is there an avenue that they need to explore so they can maybe have this man up sensation?
Yes. Yeah. When we back away, it's really our subconscious trying to keep us safe. So let's start with like from a caveman kind of perspective. Like I use, in fact, let me see. Let me grab this guy real quick. I use this stuffed animal as my illustration for our emotions. So he's just a caveman, and all he knows is his job is to keep you safe. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care if you're happy or anything. He just wants to keep you safe and alive. And so he's going to send emotions into your chest and into your hands and into your head if he thinks there's some sort of a threat. And so the whole fight, flight, or freeze thing is what a lot of people are familiar with. He's the one that actually makes that decision. We don't really make it consciously, but he's living like in our chest and sending signals up to our subconscious like, hey, we need to fight this threat, or we need to run away from this threat, or we need to just freeze and hope the threat doesn't see us. And it works really well if we're hiking out in the woods and we hear a noise and we don't know what that noise is, he's going to be caveman's coming in very handy to try to help us figure out what that threat is. Now, in our modern society, we don't have a whole lot of physical threats like bears walking around trying to eat us. So our caveman here doesn't have much of a job. So he starts looking for possible threats out there that aren't really threats. So, like giving a speech or taking a test or having a really uncomfortable confrontational conversation, he thinks that those also might kill us. So he's going to send us all these nervous and anxiety kind of signals into our body, and a lot of times his decision is we need to run away from this stressful situation. When logically we know the situation isn't really going to kill us, but we feel such a strong sensation because he's trying to keep us safe. He's just misidentified the thing he thinks is a threat and it's not. So going back to the idea of like when guys get passive, what I call, or just kind of step back instead of stepping forward, that's just a matter of training their nervous system to respond differently. It doesn't mean that they're defective. It doesn't mean that they're broken. It just probably means they didn't have a dad or a father figure to help them figure out, like, okay, what do I do in the face of a challenge or in the face of a threat? Because if I think, if my nervous system or my caveman thinks it's too much of a threat, I'm just going to stay passive. And that's not what we're made for. We're made to step up and take action.
Yeah, I like the way you rephrase that because I know all over the internet, man up is a really it's like a tense term at the minute and things like that. And because in Ireland we've always used the term man up, so I have a good understanding of what it actually means and stuff like that. And kind of plays on that Jordan Peterson quote of "You should be a monster, but you should also know how to control it" kind of thing. It comes out in certain situations. And do you think then largely because like your definition of man up is the definition that I know I was raised with it, and I know what people generations down in Ireland all know that definition. But some reason now it seems they've taken a different turn. Is it more we're misunderstanding the terms when it comes to men instead of giving them the wrong ones?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times it's just we get lost in all the vernacular of different word choices. I think if we could just have better communication with each other rather than throwing accusations and throwing little word darts at each other, like if we could hear each other's stories, then we'd realize we're probably saying the same thing, which is different language.
What about the men that are feeling a lot of pressure right now to be the provider and fixer of their families?
Good. I mean, there we need healthy weight on our shoulders. We're not stepping into a fulfilling life if we don't have a good, healthy weight on our shoulders or a true responsibility. And a man is not truly living his life that he was wired to live unless he's got people counting on him. And that obviously could be a family. But what I always try to say is like, yeah, you need to be a provider, but we make the mistake a lot of times of thinking that it's only about money that I have to provide. And that's where the unhealthy pressure comes in because, yeah, you need to contribute to the household with money. Yes, absolutely. Not necessarily the only one, but there's a lot of stay-at-home dads, by the way, who are awesome men. But provision doesn't stop at just money. Provision can mean emotional providing. In other words, like I was listening to there's a singer in this country named Ella Langley, and she was talking about her dad. She wrote a song about how he told her, "Hey, I love you from the bottom of my boots to the top of my hat," and he told her that over and over ever since she was a little girl. And like, what a sense of confidence and value and identity that instills in a guy's daughters to know that my dad loves me so much, and that means I can face anything, and I can stand up in the face of temptations, and I can make it through hard things, all because dad provided that emotional building for me and that emotional safety. So, yes, we need to be providers, and it goes way beyond just money.
Yeah, I had a off camera conversation with a guy recently that he's on social media, so he's like an older guy, gives out like wisdom talks and stuff. And I asked him, just because I know that this is something that people struggle with a lot of how do you deal with the weight of pressure that the responsibilities brings you? And he had the greatest answer ever, and he goes, like, you either deal with them or you don't. And I thought it was just incredible because there's so many people that will comment under the clips or message into the show. And I know all our podcasters are the same, like requests in their emails, men saying, I have all this responsibility. What do I do? And I know a guy that replies every time. It's almost automated. Just do it.
Yes, absolutely.
It's, but it is the most perfect advice. It's harsh, but it's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, because the stress isn't going anywhere. The responsibilities aren't going anywhere. You can try to numb yourself out or stay busy to numb yourself out with substances or drinking or staying busy with your job. You can even try to, like, numb yourself out through sex, but the stress and the responsibility is staying right where it's at, and so you can either face it and do something about it, or you can keep running away like a little boy.
It's true though. It is true. I remember reading a article like, from the Red Bull CEO. Someone like asked him about how do you manage stress, and he goes, "I don't." And they're like, "Why?" And he goes, "If I'm stressed, it means I'm doing the right thing. If I wasn't stressed, my life wouldn't be worth it." So it's such a good thing. Like there's podcasters I know have the cliche TikTok line of you can measure how successful you are by how much stressed you are, which it is cliche, but it's the right thing. But I think then maybe, well, what if we switch it to then how can people handle that responsibility, that stress, that pressure better?
Yeah, it's all about coping skills because whether you have a quote unquote successful, financially successful job, or if you're a stay at home parent where you don't get your measurables thrown in your face all the time, there's still stress. So how do we deal with the stress is the question, not like can we avoid it? That's not the question at all. So the coping skills is some people talk about balance, and I think balance is a myth because if you really think about balance, you think about a seesaw. A seesaw is never just like fully even. It's always going to be tilted one direction or another. And I talk about a symphony more than balance. Like if you look at all the instruments in a symphony, sometimes all the instruments are playing all at once, and it's loud and it's chaotic. And then other times during the symphony, there's maybe one little section of instruments that's playing, and it's more peaceful and it's a slower pace. And so our life needs to have that kind of a rhythm where sometimes it's going to be stressful and chaotic and loud and fast paced. And then we need equal amounts of times that are the opposite of where it's a little slower paced, where we can catch our breath and reset. Because our brain really, you can think of it like a muscle. And if you're constantly like curling in the gym and you just never stop doing curls, your bicep is never going to grow. In fact, it's going to shrink and get injured because the whole concept of lifting is I tear down the muscle in the gym and then I leave the gym and let it rest and it builds up stronger while it's resting. It's the same with our brain. If we're constantly feeding our brain information and stress and constant motion, it's never getting a chance to rebuild and be stronger. It's just depleting and depleting and depleting. And that is where the terms like burnout and nervous breakdowns and anxiety and depression start happening, is because we've just overtaxed the muscle in our skull.
Well, let's look at the other side of the line here then. The man that is the provider fixes everything, but can't fix himself. What's going on in his mind?
Yeah, well, he part of it is he has become sacrificial to an extreme, to an unhealthy extreme, and so I always want to praise somebody for putting other people first because that's a rare trait these days. So I start with what's right. Hey, you're sacrificing yourself. You're putting other people's situations and lives before yourself. Awesome. And because two things can be true, you also have to make sure that you are taking care of yourself because if you don't, then you're no good to anybody else. It's like when you fly on a plane and they go through the safety procedures, they talk about those air masks. As if the air masks get deployed, put the mask on yourself first and then on the child who's next to you. You got to have your own cup relatively full in order to give out to other people. So that's where I start with guys. Like, you got a good desire here for sacrifice and service. Now, let's tweak the engine so that you can keep on doing it consistently instead of sprinting for a while and then crashing because that's no good for anybody.
So then how can we fix the advice people get of you should be willing to sacrifice everything?
Yeah, I think I would ask them what they mean by everything, first of all, because are you literally talking about sacrificing my life? Because, like, in certain cases, like, it's actually might be easier to sacrifice your life. But sometimes, and I've talked to many married couples about this, sacrificing your life in terms of your physical life seems a whole lot more preferable to coming home to a really tough home environment where there's conflict and there's all kinds of external stress and internal factors that we're trying to figure out as a couple. And it's like, I don't want that kind of sacrifice. I would rather sacrifice my physical life than to have to lay my own preferences down and lay my emotions down and my needs and my wants. It's like I have to put all that stuff aside for somebody else. That's true sacrifice. And man, it literally feels like I'm dying. And then on the other side of that death, because there is a bit of a spiritual death there, but on the other side of that death, there's a resurrection, and that causes fulfillment. And that's when you really start living the life that you're meant to live.
I want to go into something now that I've noticed online, and I'm assuming everyone else has too. They just don't say it because it's not trendy or anything. But the contradiction of men should be strong but vulnerable, is that clear or confusing?
It's supposed to be confusing on the surface because it's supposed to make you think. And that's another thing. We don't really slow down enough to think and reflect very often. So I like quotes like that because they're short, which means they're kind of inviting to think about. And then if you give yourself 10 seconds to really think, okay, well, strong and vulnerable, like, huh, what does that really mean? And and I love that because, and this kind of ties into what you just asked about with the sacrificing everything and some of the guys that go too far with maybe sacrificing too much. Sometimes we're running from ourselves. And if I can hide behind sacrifice, if I'm putting everybody else first, then it looks on the surface like I'm doing my job. And what I'm actually doing is avoiding actually dealing with the stuff that needs to be dealt with underneath the surface. And to deal with the stuff underneath the surface, that takes freaking strength because it's scary. Vulnerability requires strength. Vulnerability requires courage. Like you can't be courageous. You can't be brave unless you're scared. So, yeah, we got to be vulnerable and that's scary. And so it takes strength and courage in order to pull that off.
Yeah, it kind of sums up masculinity as a whole right now. It's confusion on the surface, kind of. And that's something that I wanted to ask you specifically because you're a guy's therapist. You've seen all different types of situations. You've heard all the stories. In your like opinion, what is healthy masculinity in 2026?
I hate that we even have to put a year on it. I get why we do because of all the different influences and things like that. But I truly don't think that the nature of a man or the nature of a woman has changed. I think it's just the some of the culture and the conversation around it. And so for me, it really comes down to as a man, I'm bringing strength to the table, physically for sure, and hopefully emotionally. That's where a lot of the guys need some help. But what am I doing with that strength? Like that's one of the key defining factors between the two genders is the strength. So, am I using that strength to benefit me, or am I using that strength to benefit you? And there's a lot of guys out there right now, these kind of manosphere influencers, and they think, well, yeah, I'm here to get for me, and I'm going to use you to get more for me. But a true man is here to sacrifice and to serve and to say, yes, I'm bringing my strength to you in order to better your life because I know if I can better your life, then we're all going to do better. And frankly, this shouldn't be the motive, but if I help you, you're probably going to also be reciprocatory and help me as well. And so to me, that's where manhood starts. Is like, what do I do with the strength? And you can take beyond just a physical strength, but we're pretty stubborn people, pretty stubborn species as men as well. And I think there's a lot of stuff right with that because when we know something is right or righteous, that we need to have the stubbornness or the stick to itiveness to actually fight for that. And the desire in a man to fight is a good thing as well. I wish that societies still allowed their young men to fight each other without involving all kinds of legal processes. Like there are still, from what I've read, there are still cultures in Africa that they form a fight club circle where teen boys that are on the precipice of wanting to be called a man, they fight each other to prove it. Or some of them, they have to go kill a lion to go prove that they're ready. And then others, this is, I learned this last summer. I was in the rainforest and they said when a man in our culture, when a boy in our culture is ready to be a man or thinks he's ready to be a man and thinks he's ready to be married, he has to stick his hand in a bucket full of bullet ants. And bullet ants, if you're not familiar, they are the most painful insect bite, I think, maybe in the world. But just being bitten once by a bullet ant is a level 10 pain and it causes you to be sick for 2 or 3 weeks. They have to stick their hand in a bunch of them and leave it there for 3 minutes. And so I'm like, yeah, that sounds crazy by today's standards, but I wish we had at least some elements of that because we've lost the the physical outlets for a guy to show his physical strength and to fight because if he can't fight physically, he's still got those unanswered questions, and that means he's probably going to be more likely to run away from more of the emotional fights with a wife or with a boss or with a friend because we've stunted that part of him, and so it's working out poorly in relationships as well.
Well, let's do a hypothetical then. Let's try and see if we can get some kind of test here, both even simplified. So, say there's a man listening to this that doesn't feel he can bring those qualities to the table, doesn't feel like he has the drive for those emotional fights. What would be a good battle test for him to do to see where he is at?
I test them by asking them this. I'm going to leave the room for 5 minutes. Do not get to have your phone. You don't get to have any screen. You just need to sit here by yourself with your thoughts for 5 minutes. Can you do that? And if they can, then they're probably ahead of most men in the world, I would say. And if they can't, then that's where we start. It's like, okay, what are you running from? You're running from something inside yourself, and it's not you that's the problem. It's something inside you, what I call an injury, what a lot of therapists call traumas, but guys don't really like that language, so I go with injury. Like there's probably an injury in there somewhere that's causing you to have these thoughts or remember certain things from the past. And anytime that you have to get quiet, all those things come rushing up to the surface, and that's super uncomfortable. So let's deal with that stuff that you're avoiding or trying to distract yourself out of.
Yeah, that's such a good method too, because there's this guy on Instagram, Jack's Mind, who we message quite a bit and stuff, and he's doing a challenge at the minute where one of the requirements is you have to sit in complete silence for 2 minutes every day. And I've been trying it every now and again. I'm doing a little bit of the challenge, but not the whole thing. And I tried it the last few days of sitting in silence. And I remember I just sat like yesterday I done it, and I was just looking around like this should not be as hard as it is. This should not be as difficult. And I thought back to me 4 years ago, even a year ago, and I was sitting thinking like, I don't know how well this would have went because it is torturous a little bit. It is. It's not easy because it's almost like you sit down, put everything into the room, and the door opens, and you walk in and sit in front of you, and it's an uncomfortable sit. Anybody listening, try it for 1 minute. Even it is an uncomfortable sit.
It is, yeah. I tell people to start with 30 seconds because 2 minutes could be really intimidating. I mean, truly, I'm not being sarcastic because 2 minutes is feels like an eternity if you've never done it before. So, yeah, start with 30 if 2 minutes feels too uncomfortable. But it's for real, man. Like our brains are not used to the silence, but once they get used to it, they realize they need it.
Let's keep going on here. The stronger aspect of a man, the elements that they should have, the provider elements, things like that. But we also now have the other side of the revolting door right now, where people want men to show a little bit of a softer side. They want the more vulnerable side. They want them to be open up a little bit, show their weaknesses, and help improve them. Is it almost like men are being asked to be two different people at once?
Uh, No, I think it's a fair expectation. You can have multiple sides of your personality, and we have the capability to be strong in moments that require strength and to be tender in moments that require tenderness. I think that's a fair expectations. We're we're much more complex than just like being one way all the time. We're not cartoon characters or I mean, heck, even dogs have a wide range of emotions. They can be ferocious in one minute and then just laying on their back wanting you to pet their belly the next. So, no, I think we are made for a wide range of the human experience. I think it's fair to ask us to step into that and to deepen it and widen it.
How can men be vulnerable? Because I think that's where they're hitting a wall with. They don't actually understand it.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. We don't really train them on what does it mean to be vulnerable, and especially that question of like, how are you feeling? Like when a wife asks a husband, "How are you feeling?" That is the scariest question for most husbands because they don't know. They're not trying to hide it necessarily. Most of the time, they just don't know how to figure out how they're feeling. And I was the same way. Even after I became a therapist, I still didn't have a good sense of like what was happening in my body and what we would call that feelings and emotions. But nobody had ever taught me, even in grad school, or maybe I just wasn't listening, that our body is where the emotions live. And so we can't just think our way into emotions or out of emotions. It's a lot of us guys, we have basically cut ourselves off from the neck down, and we just live in our heads only. And the nerdy term for that is intellectualizing, and that's what I was doing. I was just intellectualizing everything. Like instead of instead of like being sad about something that was sad, I was like, I acknowledged that it was sad, or like I would acknowledge something was hard that I went through, but I never actually like sat in that and allowed those physical sensations to run through my body. And so when I first started realizing, like, I'm not feeling anything, I'm basically just alternating between like being angry sometimes and being numb most of the time. I knew that's not how I want to live. Like I'm made to live in a much more deep, broad experience than that. So the simple thing that I try to teach guys to do is just check in with your body. And you can do it in that 30 seconds of silence or 2 minutes of silence if you want. It's just like what's happening in my chest, because that's usually the first area that guys start to feel emotions, or what's happening in my back of my neck, what's happening in my like scalp on the skin. Is it tingly? Is it tight? What am I like? I'll check in with my legs at random points of the day, and I'll realize like my left calf is like clenched for like no reason. I wouldn't think but then I realize like, oh wait, that muscle is clenched because there's some part of me that's like ready to take on some sort of stressor or challenge or something. I'm like, okay, what is that? So there's a whole process, and I won't bore you with it, but it starts with just recognizing what's happening in your body. And then you can start realizing, like, okay, well, this sensation probably we would call that anxiety, or this other sensation we would call that anger. And then we can move from there. But just asking a guy to figure out how are you feeling, we're not really wired for that naturally. We got to start with the physical first.
So we'll go into some of these men now that are being vulnerable and are opening up, because this is now almost like a subsection of issues nowadays, which men are opening up, they're being vulnerable, they're accessing their feelings, but now they feel like they're way behind life's typical checkpoint list. And that's something that is damaging men all over the world right now. And something that I want to ask you is, what is it that is making men feel like they're falling behind?
It goes back to that original fear of I'm not enough. And then we don't have enough father figures, enough mentors to help them figure out that, yes, you do have the stuff inside you. You have the right traits inside you. And those guys, there's not enough of those mentors and father figures to help them develop what's already inside of them. And then we have too much comparison going on. We look on social media or in movies or shows or whatever, and we see these polished AI versions of guys like with the perfect six pack and the guns and like the supposed like seven-figure salary and the perfect marriage and the kids that love them all the time. And like we see all this crap and we think, well, I look at that perfectionized version of somebody and then I look at my life, I'm like, I'm way behind. And so of course I'm going to start feeling bad about myself, and that's going to become stress and all the different things. But we've got to lean into mentors, and then we got to figure out what is the standard. Like, am I just always trying to keep up with somebody else? Because what if I do sort of catch up to a guy that I was like jealous of at first, and then I pass him? Then what? Am I satisfied for the rest of my life? No, I'm going to naturally look for like, what's the next guy I need to compare myself to? That is a freaking losing battle. There's no win in comparison. So we got to figure out what standard do I want to live by? What standard do I want to judge myself by? Because it cannot be other guys. Now you can look at other guys and their traits, individual traits. Like I like this thing about that guy and this other thing about that other guy, and you can start to build into yourself what you admire. But we got to stop with the comparison with each other. That's the first battle.
Yeah, I think about that so much, because you see all the reports and articles come out about all these triggers for like what, like deep depressions and things that men have that, unfortunately now in today's world leads to suicide and stuff like that. But I always think about that. Is comparison the silent monopoly player in the game of men's mental health?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. So I'm glad you brought it up, and let's go as far into that as you want.
Well, first one we have to go on to is, or should we be aware of these people on social media are sometimes living a fake life, because that's where the main comparison is, because the phone's glued to their hands all the time. If we're seeing that constantly, like for example, if you're going on YouTube, you may see a YouTube video titled 21-year-old millionaire or something like that, and you're sitting there, you might not have enough money to even get food in for the rest of the week. That doesn't help things. So should we be wary of what we are comparing ourselves to?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because yeah, it's the algorithm is gonna serve us up what it thinks that we want more of, and if it can get an emotional reaction out of us, then it'll keep giving us those same videos, and yeah, like, most of these guys that claim that they're rich, they're lying their asses off, and then most of the guys that are ripped, they're probably on some sort of steroid, so look at them in 5 or 10 years, see how bad their body broke down, but yeah, we see social media and we think like, most guys, they think if I can get ripped enough and rich enough and get laid enough, then I'll be a man. Then I'll be good enough. And it's like, sorry, you can keep on chasing all those things you want, and it's just never going to be enough. Like there was a guy in America, an entrepreneur named John Rockefeller, and dude was like at the time the richest man in the world. And somebody asked him, "Hey, how much money is enough money?" And he said, "Just one more dollar." Like it's just never enough. No matter how rich he got, he just kept wanting more. And that's how it is. We have these appetites and they're good appetites. Like being having money, a comfortable amount where you don't have the stress of being in poverty, that's good. And being physically fit is good. And sex is good in the right context. But we put them out of order in the batting order and we think that it's gonna like be the answer to everything. And they're good things. They're just not the actual answers.
So who should we be comparing ourselves to?
Woo! Okay, so then we get deep. So then that's where anytime I can, whether it's with a client that I'm working with or somebody that I'm mentoring, I ask them, "Hey, what is your worldview?" Because if you don't really understand, like, what is the bigger story going on around me, like, then you don't really know how to fit into the world. You don't really know what your life is really for. Like, our life is a story. Like, my life is an individual story. Yours is an individual story. And then now you and I get to cross paths. So now in our connection that we've made, you and I get to contribute to the bigger story that's happening all around us. And so in that conversation, I just start to listen. This is where, as a therapist, I'm not allowed to tell them anything. I can tell them what I believe, but I'm always wanting to know what they think because if you look at a human, we're integrated. So we're mind, we're body, we are soul, we are spirit, we're emotions. And if you leave any of those things out, you leave some holes, some gaps. So I want to make sure we talk about all those different aspects. And so when we get to the soul and spirit part, that's when I'm like, hey, what do you think? Like, are you here randomly? Is there a God that created you? What would be the implications for a yes to that or a no to that? And from there, we just go into that conversation where I'm mostly listening and just reflecting back to them what I hear them saying.
Like we mentioned the Viktor Frankl thing of men chase achievement and forget to look for purpose. So should we prioritize purpose and the achievements can come later?
Mm, yes, that's I don't know that I've ever heard anybody articulate it that succinctly. Yeah, I can't add anything to that because you said make sure I'm hearing what you said. You said we should prioritize purpose and then achievements come later. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that. I think we could end the show right on that. You hit the bullseye right there.
Well, we'll move on from that then because you have mentioned actually quite a few times, and this is quite funny because my last episode we talked about this a lot. The men that are maybe don't have a father in their life or maybe don't have a male role model, and rightfully so, they don't really have anything to aim at then. And when I had Rich Lee on last week, he mentioned about the Manosphere documentary. He didn't like the fact that you could tell there was fatherless men in it that were trying to be male role models without knowing what a male role model was. So say these maybe older men, younger men, just young adults, they don't have a father figure in their life. They don't have a male role model that does stand out in their life. Where might they go to find one, or who should they look to for one?
Yeah, yeah, you do have to be intentional about this, and I'm hoping this starts to change where some of the older guys are gonna be the more intentional to pursue some of these younger guys, but as of right now, if you really wanna mentor, you as the younger guy, you gotta be the one that actually initiates that, and that can be scary, so sometimes you gotta hit to the point of desperation before you actually, like, humble yourself to ask an older dude, like, "Hey, can we meet and talk about life?" Like, that's you don't have to use the word mentor or anything like that. You don't have to make it all weird and official. Just like, "Hey, grab lunch once a week? Like, you just can we do this regularly? You don't have to put a title on it. And if you do that, if you're the younger guy and you ask an older guy that, I would be shocked if any older guy was not totally honored by that. I mean, like, just to have somebody come up to me and say like, "Hey, will you help me figure out life?" Like, what a huge boost that is for me that somebody thinks enough of me and what I've been through to want to pick my brain and get wisdom. So, heck yeah, it's worth doing and it's scary, and anything that's worth doing is usually gonna be scary. But in terms of something practical, find the guys that are old and retired, that they don't have a job to keep them busy anymore, but they have so much wisdom to give you. They have so many experiences that they've gone through as an employee, as a husband, as a dad, as a friend. Like, just look for those guys that are just maybe sitting around at a restaurant. If like, truly, if you don't know anybody, then you'll have to do it that way. But I bet if you look in your own circle, you've got a cousin, an uncle, one of your friends' dads, or somebody in your circle. You probably have somebody like that that you at least admire or would want to get to know a little better, and just like ask them, "Hey, can we hang out a little more often? I'm trying to figure out life. Like, can I pick your brain?" And then if you do it with one guy, you'll probably realize he's got some really strong areas and experiences that are tailored to specific aspects of life. And then you'll probably need at least one other person, because that other person is probably going to have specialties that the other one doesn't have. So I think, man, once you get the taste of being mentored and then mentoring somebody else, it's an addiction, and it's a healthy addiction this time.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think that is probably the missing piece in this thing that we spoke about a lot. The men that don't feel like they are enough, or they're not like this. I'm gonna keep going back to this because I still can't believe it's a thing. This whole checkpoint thing in life, like it's such a stupid, silly thing. And the reason why I keep coming back to it is because I know for a fact, because I've had this in the past, where men are listening to this, because I think my demographic age range is in between 21 and 40. So these are people that are going to probably be hit quite a lot by this next question, which is, why does it feel like time's running out in our 20s and 30s?
Okay, so part of it is you got to see through the bull crap of the people that are trying to tell you you're behind. For example, there are certain influencers that brag about themselves even if they didn't really do the thing they're bragging about, or even if they did do the thing that they're bragging about. The very fact that they're bragging about it is showing you that they still don't feel good enough about themselves. So they need to come on their video and tell you, well, you need to do what I did by this age. Otherwise, you're a failure. And maybe they don't say it that strong, but the real reason that they're saying this is so that they can feel better by comparison. And it goes back to that, the trap of comparison. There's no win in it. So even when you find yourself that you've achieved all this stuff, it didn't fulfill you like you thought it was going to. So then you feel like you got to brag about it and then make people feel bad that they haven't done the thing that you did by the certain time. So we're both freaking empty here, and you're just dumping on me because you still feel empty after you achieved the thing you thought would fulfill you. So that's step one, is see through the freaking bullcrap of what people are selling or telling you should be the benchmarks.
Yeah, I agree because what's his name? Michael Smoke has a great quote on this, which it is a great quote, but it does show a massive problem. His quote is, achievement didn't feel like anything to me because in my mind it was a necessary requirement. And it's so good because I remember even growing up seeing those, like this is when those achievement hunter type people on YouTube and Instagram and stuff were really popping up. People that were saying they were multimillionaires at 19 when they weren't, but that became a thing of you almost felt like you were behind. So if there are people, there's a generation of people that have got that thing and it doesn't feel like anything to them because in their mind they should have had it long ago. And it's kind of blends the two things you mentioned there, but I just feel like it's such a horrible thing, which is why I wanted to put a spotlight on it because like you have to think in the future, like these content creators have to amp it up constantly. Like you look at TV shows, they have to get better every year. And there's only so long before someone starts to outshine that Mr. Beast fella. And all of a sudden then we've got a comparison, a pandemic on our hands that probably will never be beaten. So is there like a frame that we can change? Because we're never going to get people off social media. People are never going to stop scrolling. So is there a frame that we could view influencers and the shiny objects on social media so they won't damage us long term?
Let's see if this metaphor hits at all, because it's going to be a little bit different than what you might expect. So I learned that I can have a certain level of feeling sorry for somebody and have that be healthy. In other words, when I first started posting on social media, I would have occasionally people just ripping me in the comments. I mean, just part of the game, right? So, all kind of different insults. And so at first it hurt and it still hurts, but I learned to put a frame around it of, well, how much pain must that person be carrying around inside that they felt like they had to take the time and go on some stranger's video and spew the pain inside of them onto my comment section. That person must be living a pretty rough life, pretty painful life, and I feel bad for them. And so instead of letting their comment just get to me and be a statement about my value, I realized like, okay, why did they do that? And that's if we could start filtering any kind of thing, really any part of life, but especially stuff we see on social media, like the filter of like, why did they really say that? Or why are they trying to portray this particular image? Then we could probably see like, oh, they're just as insecure as I am. And maybe that means I can start making a little progress of figuring out like who I am and what gives me value so that I don't end up in that place of trying to air my insecurities out on screen or trying to put a mask on to claim that I don't have any insecurities.
Yeah, I've been kind of toying with this a lot, especially this year because I'm trying to niche down what I consume on social media the most because I could feel myself towards the end of last year, kind of trying to develop habits of people that maybe I didn't actually really want them. Like, this is not me saying these people are terrible or bad or anything, but like, I used to listen to a lot of Lex Friedman and Chris Williamson podcasts, and they're incredible what they do. They're unbelievable conversationalists, but more importantly, they are probably two of the most emotionally intelligent people on the planet. And I am never going to be able to learn how to do all that because I just don't have the interest in it and I don't have the drive to go and do it. So me listening to them every week and every day was making me try and question what I was good at. But so now if I go and move to someone who's a little bit more like me, more in my bubble, it's better because instead of now the framing of who are the top of the game, who do I want to be the best at and all that stuff, sit and think when you're scrolling past someone, if I could be them, would I want to be them? And how long would it take for me to be unhappy as them? Because I think that's a better frame. Because then now you're looking at people that you're not comparing yourself to them all the time. You're now almost looking like, what is he doing good? What is he doing bad? Where could I maybe get an edge over here? So you're instead of consuming it from the comparison side, you're looking at it like, could I add that to my game almost? Does that make sense in the kind of solution you're given?
Yes, I love it. I love that question because yeah, it requires you to look at it from a different angle, and it requires you to be honest with yourself. Like, yeah, if I'm really honest with myself, I'd probably get unhappy after a while if I was in that person's shoes. So, yeah, I'm all in on that. I might even steal that from you.
It's no problem. So we'll talk now a little bit about we mentioned that before we started recording that we were going to talk a little bit about what a man is now because like we spoke a lot now throughout, like there is a lot of contradictions. There's a lot of things that maybe in the past that made a man that maybe don't apply anymore. You know, technology's advanced. We've got so much other things at our fingertips. It's not the same thing. So I start with something that I know people struggle with the most, which is what is self-worth based on now?
Man, that's a great question. What is it based on now in terms of like what people are mostly believing that it's built on or what it should built on? What angle do you want to take?
We'll go a mix of both.
For most people, at least most people that I actually interact with, because I don't know that there's real stats on this that would be addressing this specific question. But from an anecdotal perspective, most people think that achievements equal value. So more achievements, bigger achievements must mean that I must be super valuable. And then therefore, if I'm not achieving as much or if I'm not achieving as big a thing as the other person, then that must mean I'm less than. And so again, this same thing we've been talking about, but that's why I ask a guy to eventually get to answer those two questions: who are you and why are you here? Because those two answers, if you have really solid answers to those two questions, you won't question your value. You'll already know, like, okay, I know who I am, and like that guy can achieve more than me, and that's okay. Like that's just not my race to run. But that's where I always start because most people do think that's the achievements and the stuff that can be measured and it's the funeral exercise is one thing I try to take guys through is like, all right, at your funeral, what do you want people to say about you? Do you want to like show off pictures of your car and your house and like look at the guy, what the place this guy lives? Like, no, everybody that at least that I've met wants people to talk about them at their funeral in a way that was relational and talked about the impact that they made on specific lives. Like even rich people that donate to charities, that's not stuff that gets talked about much at a funeral. It's that individual heart to heart level impact that people are going to remember you for. So I think the answer is we need to focus more on serving other people, and therefore in that process focus more on the deeper relationships. And of course that requires the vulnerability to get there.
I love the funeral analogy because I journal like kind of like life lessons to my future self almost quite a lot. And there's one that I was playing with a lot lately, which is it is a funeral one, but it's would you be happy with the speech said at your funeral right now? So people that are chasing success and achievement, if that was the thing that was only said at your funeral, and you look around the church and there's your family's faces maybe aren't too bright and shiny as you might think, would you be happy with it? Or would you be more happy with someone standing up there with a big smile on their face saying that he was caring, he was a provider, things like that? And it's usually a good perspective on whether you're chasing the right thing or not. And it gives me a thought that it's going to sound crass and it's going to sound judgmental, but I think it is true because you said like those questions to ask yourself, who are you and why are you here? It's tough to answer. A lot of men I know in the comments won't be able to answer it. And even those questions like just asking yourself, how are you and things like that won't be answered. And even I'm asked you there now what a man is in 2026. It's not as clear, it's not as black and white as you might think. But if we can't clearly identify who we are, what could that do long term to men?
It just keeps you on a freaking treadmill, and you're going to be running faster and faster and faster and really getting nowhere. You'll be exhausted, and then we run into all those depression and other issues that we talked about. But the depression is really just a symptom of the fact that you were chasing the wrong things and you were chasing it really, really hard, thinking that you were on the right track. But it turned out it was just a lie, like empty promises. I liken it to bait on a fish hook. Man, that bait looks really good and shiny and delicious. And so we run to that thing because we think it's going to fulfill us and give us the meaning that we want, significance and all that. And then we bite it and we realize, oh, it came with a hook. It's like it felt good for a minute. It tasted good for a minute. And then it didn't do really much of anything. Like there's research that shows this, that achievements, they all, the happiness you get from your achievements always ends up fading. And the biggest achievements, that the biggest goals people set in their lives, even those things fade after 3 months. They've measured all the kind of happiness that comes with the achievements. And so pick the biggest goal you could ever accomplish. You're going to get at most 3 months out of that, and you're going to go back to feeling the same. Like same idea. Like when I bought a new truck, like I was really excited. I felt awesome. And then about a week later, I was like, well, I'm kind of starting to feel like normal again. And then 2 weeks later, I felt totally normal again. Like, well, shoot, that didn't do a whole lot. So it's that process. It's just buying the lie that the more we the more we get and the more accomplishments we stack up, that's somehow going to give us the significance and fulfillment we're looking for.
So we've addressed a lot of problems, and I'm guessing anyone that has listened the whole way through and is still listening now relates to these things, or they've had them in some way. So I want to do something with you now because you're a therapist, and we spoke a lot about therapy on the show many, many times. But this is what I meant by bringing the therapy to them now. So I'm going to give you some kind of situations or whatever it is that I think globally men will feel, and you're going to give me some advice on what these people should do. Does that sound okay?
Let's do it.
So, man feels lost, behind, and disappointed in life. What should he do?
First step, start journaling. Why do I feel lost? Who do I feel behind compared to whom? Get them out on paper because that's going to help you collect your thoughts. And then you need to take them to somebody that you trust. This could be a friend. This could be a mentor, could be a therapist. Doesn't have to be. By the way, like obviously I'm a believer in therapy, but I think you should seek guidance first from the people that are already in your life and then seek therapy after that. Therapy, at least in America right now, it has become too high of a priority in a lot of situations. So yes, seek therapy, but make it part of a more holistic process.
So, a different side of the coin. What is the number one thing men should stop doing right now?
Hmm, that's a great question. Um, I'm gonna say stop distracting yourself, because if you're distracting yourself, you're not giving your brain a chance to not just rest like we talked about, but also you're missing the chance to reflect on what you really want out of life. If you stay busy all the time, you just keep going with the assumptions and you never pause long enough to zoom out and see if these assumptions are actually true, or if these things that I say that I want are actually what I want. So, yeah, stop distracting yourself.
We become really good as society now holding people to standards, but what is a standard that we should completely ignore?
Mm. um, let's go for now. Let's go with body count, because I don't know. I don't know how much you want to get into this one, but it's it's uh it's one of the ones that derails a lot of guys. So let's stop the body count standard.
Correct. I did not. You could have given me 1,000 guesses. I did not go in that avenue at all. So, I mean, it does not give my next one much of a great entry door here, but what does a man that you respect look like?
So first and foremost, he knows he is not in this life for himself, that he is in this life to benefit other people. And he has also figured out that he gets to feel the happiness that he always wanted to feel by making life not about him. So that's first and foremost. Also, he's somebody that wants to be pushed. I have guys in my life that I have begged, like, please, when you see me being a jerk or doing something that needs to be adjusted, you please, please, please tell me. Like, if you don't tell me, I'm not going to see it. It's because that's why we call them blind spots. And so, a man that has guys in his life that are willing to push him, and he wants that push and he wants that challenge, that's a true man right there. So beyond that, all kinds of other aspects. Like, I respect a man who takes care of his body, because if you take care of your body, that means you value yourself. And that means that you have things like determination and patience and resilience. Like, you can see those traits in somebody's body. Now, I don't want somebody who takes their body so far that their body is the thing that gives them value, but there's no denying that, like, taking care of your physical health is an indication of how you feel about yourself inside as well. And then for me, I respect somebody that understands that his job is to um, is to live for somebody else's glory. And for me, that's the God of the Bible. And then for somebody else, I just respect that, like, they're trying to bring, even if they don't follow the same faith path that I have, they're at least trying to bring attention to somebody else besides themselves. Those are the qualities, at least some of the qualities of a man I respect.
Last one. It's quite a tough one for me to get together in my head, but how can we shift from a need to prove ourselves to a want to understand ourselves?
Ooh, ooh, that's good. Yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes from a show called Ted Lasso is, "Be curious, not judgmental." You familiar with that show? I love it, yeah. So be curious, not judgmental. So first, like, put that on the freaking lock screen of your phone. Just make it a regular thing that you start seeing, because whatever you see the most is generally what you're gonna end up doing. So start at that level, and then start asking questions of, like, other people, like, "Hey, what do you see in me? Like, what do you respect about me? What do you like about me?" If you don't wanna do it that way, start with, like, fictional characters. Like, what characters do you respect? What characters have you been drawn to all your life? And those are usually indications of the value of a true man, or the standard of a true man. And then start comparing, like, okay, if I see those qualities and I respect him for those, then am I actually living by those as well, or am I allowing my standards to be pulled by social media?
Great. So, Trey, where can people find you and what have you got out at the moment?
Yeah, so the book is Tough Enough, and I'm donating all the proceeds I make from that to charity, because I'm not trying to freaking line my pockets with this stuff. And then on social media, it's Rugged Counseling. So Instagram, YouTube, all the places. So I'm pretty. This ugly mug is pretty easy to find.